Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Influential Oregonian, where we have discussions on Oregon history and academics and interview important people who have made history within or in the name of the Beaver State. I'm your host, Marcus Axford from the show Welcome to Oregon, joined by my boon companions, archaeologist and Marquist of Salem, David Winkler, and Finn J.D. John of Offbeat Oregon and the Baron of Corvallis. Gentlemen, welcome.
Thank you, Don Marcus.
Grazie, signor.
I should add King of Oregon to my title because that's what gets joked about in my household. Oh, it's the King of Monmouth. It's the King of Oregon. It's the
Well, I
King
didn't
of
vote for you.
I think a dukedom would be more appropriate. Then we could call you Your Grace.
Nah.
Yeah.
And here I thought I was the king of Oregon.
Oh, there we go. We've already got a War of the Rose State.
And that voice, ladies and gentlemen, is our guest today, who's an incredible individual. He serves as the executive director of the Oregon Historical Society, has been given several accolades, including the most admired nonprofit executive in Portland, Oregon Statesman of the Year Award, and Liberty Award, and is a four-time champion of the popular game show Jeopardy! Whew, I think I can speak for everyone here when I say we're absolutely honored to welcome Kerry Tymchuk. Welcome.
Great to be here.
Ooh,
This is awesome.
I'm all a tingle. Okay, we're all charged and excited to get into this interview, but before we do, we have some announcements and, of course, going through the whole rigmarole. I am currently working on the store still. I know a couple weeks ago I said it was all ready to go, and I lied. Actually, I didn't lie. It was an educated wish for all you Deadpool fans out there. So Printful is what I was using because it's done through Wix. And apparently Printful needs you to have money up front for fulfillment orders. And we're poor. I don't do that.
Crime pays, but history doesn't.
No, it doesn't. So I just want, our fans to just click buy and me not have to do anything. That's the whole point of being network lead, is to be absolutely lazy and do no work whatsoever.
Oh, like a baron.
Yes. No,
Or a
Duke. Duke.
Yes.
But anyway, one of our esteemed artists, Melanie Sardina, and wife of our good friend Kenny, recommended Redbubble. So that is what I'm currently working on going through. And oh my God, I have been laughing all morning because I've been doing some of the designs. I'm doing all of our show art, so all four shows plus the network art, because you have to have four art pieces to actually get the thing running. So I'm laughing as I'm designing a clock that says Offbeat Oregon on it. Yeah, you can get shower curtains, bath mats. Some of this stuff we won't actually feature on because of the way the printing design has to work. I can't get some of the sizes to go as big as what it needs to, but yeah, just all of this this just bizarre stuff. The clock I am keeping on there because I think it's cool. There's throw pillows on there, and I told you guys this morning in chat, I have to collect all the show pillows.
Oh my God, try going to sleep with our three faces on a pillowcase.
Ugh.
Oh, I have a picture of the three of us. Perfect. From the McMinimans Edgefield lecture that we went to. Yay, I'll put
I
that
do
on
wish
there.
somebody did plushies and print on demand or whatever it is that they call that, because that would be cool. Although I don't know what we'd make the plushie of, but
Us, what else?
Yeah.
so,
We just have this like long waiver that each guest has to sign off on, and included in the fine print is we get to make a plushie of you and reap all the profits.
we could be like the puppet regime guys for the state of Oregon. That could be good.
Well,
All
I
right,
know
all
that
right.
you can make plushies. I don't know who would go through, but we're gonna have a lot of really cool stuff coming up that I'm trying to work hard on. Um, and Welcome to Oregon gets recorded today. I know, I said that 2 weeks in a row. I got to a point where I'm just like, you know what? I'm just gonna chalk this up as I needed a episode slot to off, or I say week off, but
A
it's
bye week.
bi-weeklies. Yeah, I need a bye week off. Um, so because I had it done by Wednesday, but it's like, well, at this point, there's no point in trying to rush out another script to and do all this stuff in a hurry. So I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna not have anxiety over it, not worry about it. I'll just get it recorded today and then start on episode 50 as soon as I can. So, and speaking of Welcome to Oregon, I've actually been thinking about. Well, originally I was thinking about renaming the episodes, but a lot of people like the cutesy names for all the episodes I do. But I feel like there needs to be some sort of additive, further than just the description of the show that kind of gives you a little overview of what to expect. That's a little slight irritation I have about lore is the fact that like I like to go through and try to figure out what episodes of lore I love, and the description doesn't really say what the episode's about, and the title definitely doesn't. So I think I might do like a subtitle of some sort where like the first episode, Origins, where just in parentheses early Oregon histories, something like that. Um, so I might do that for like search purposes and stuff to make the show episodes, excuse me, a little easier to search. And I think that's it for this week on my end. So I'm going to push it over to David.
Okay. So the long anticipated public excavation here in Salem with Kimberly Fitzgerald is going on. It started this week. The first official day breaking ground and digging was yesterday. I'm going out there again this afternoon. And again, we're still seeking the foundations of the Oregon Indian Manual Labor Training School, which became the Oregon Institute, which became Willamette University. So we've pretty much got full reign of this little corner of the campus, which is kind of nice. We've got pretty cushy digs. On some Saturday here in the near future, we all of us, or at least we still need to talk to Finn about it. But
I was literally
Marcus,
about to say, "Oh shoot, we are supposed to
we
talk
forgot
to
to
Finn
talk to
about this."
Finn.
I'm glad I'm not the only one who realized that.
Yeah, so myself, Marcus, our friend Kenny, hopefully Finn, I would really love that. We'll be going down to do a vlog with Kimberly and some of the Oregon Archaeological Society folks.
And that sounds like so much fun.
Yeah, and
No, I
so
think we were thinking of that for next Saturday, possibly.
Yeah, so we still need to talk about it.
Okay.
I want to say that the official public open house where people can go and they can visit the site, they can meet Kimberly and the OAS folks and kind of tour the site. You cannot dig, I'm sorry. But it's a cool way to kind of see how an archaeological investigation looks like on the ground. That public day is going to be Friday, June 13th. So we're excited. We've already got a couple of units open. I'm going to be doing some shovel testing out in the boonies of the university, so I may not be around too much, but I'll be there. Um, and yeah, it's just going to be an exciting time.
Well, I guess I'll leave my dynamite sticks at home.
No, bring them. We can
But
chuck them in the river later. It'll be fun.
oh, perfect. I haven't been fishing in a while.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was something I had talked to you about. Like, I didn't necessarily want to do a meeting with the team like on a public because obviously they're already busy interacting with
Yes.
everybody else and stuff. So I'm really happy we get to kind of go out
Yes.
on a more private day and
Yeah.
actually get to focus on the work at hand. It's going to be very exciting. At first, I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, I don't know about this, but then I got to think, I'm like, you know what? Just be a guest man. Just
Yes.
improv. Always say yes.
Yeah. Well, it's a very relaxed environment. The stakes are high, so people will be working as we talk to them. But both Kimberly and Penn, who are really overseeing this, both gave their blessing for us to come out.
Well, and I think you got us scheduled because I'm not the only one who has to do work around here. I think I made that very clear.
Yeah.
Where you actually scheduled us one of the team members on the project. And oh God, what was the name? Laurel?
So Laurel is not on this project.
Okay, okay,
No, they are a fellow CRM archaeologist,
okay, okay.
but they've been doing the work for a long time, mostly in the Valley in Washington, so they're a good resource.
Okay, because I'm thinking get them scheduled at some point. I almost think it would be kind of cool, a little behind the scenes here, if we were able to get somebody to guest on the next week to actually go over that vlog and kind of discuss more in depth about what we were looking at and stuff. I think that'd be kind of
Yeah,
cool.
that'd be a lot of fun. Yeah, we can work on it.
Sounds good. Alrighty, is it Finn's turn?
I guess it must be. I don't have a whole lot to report. I've been really doing some fine tuning on the Penny Dreadful Story Hour concept. I've separated it out into early Victorian and mid Victorian dreadfuls, and the tone is totally different between like the Sweeney Todd era and the Highwayman Dick Turpin era. And I've added a couple of new dreadfuls to it. One of them is The Mysteries of London, which was the most read work of fiction of the 19th century in the United Kingdom. So it must be pretty, it is pretty good. The other one I have really high hopes for. It's called Rose Mortimer, semicolon, or, comma, The Ballet Girl's Revenge.
Oh God, more ballet girls.
That sounds like Black Widow.
Tons of ballet girls around this time because they had just transitioned from being considered a low art to being considered a high art. And so all of these dreadful authors were trying to rehabilitate their reputation. So, yeah, there's been a lot of ballet girls on the Penny Dreadful Story Hour lately. I'm also switching to a bi-weekly, so I'm going to do the 1840s ones one week and then the 1860s ones the next week and then back to the 1840s ones because, well, I explain it in the next episode that's coming up, but I'm kind of afraid of getting myself overcommitted, and there's like a hard pivot that happens where it goes from being a pleasure and a hobby to being a chore, and all of a sudden there's no magic in it anymore, and it just falls apart. I really don't want that to happen with
It
Penny
feels like a
Dreadful.
production line. Yeah, yeah.
So anyway, yeah, that's basically what's going on. Everything else is just trucking along as usual.
Yeah, I was really excited to learn about venereal diseases in the last Tuesday episode.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
the halfpenny horrids, I'm calling those, and that got really serious all of a sudden. Oh, and also by the time we have our next meeting, I probably will have a front tooth. I'm hoping. But right now, I'm looking pretty Alfred E. Newman-ish.
Finn was in a horrific hockey accident.
That's it. No, I got punched by Elon. No, not Elon Musk. Stephen Miller. Stephen Miller punched me because he thought I was horning in on his wife or something like that. I make fun of politicians in a bipartisan manner. That was not an attempt to take out a political position.
Oh no, comedy is universal. I make fun of everyone equally and without mercy. No, it's funny because you mentioned in that episode, like, the needle thing. I'm not going to say any more than that, but the needle thing was going to be worse than the thumb thing. And actually, for me, no, the thumb thing was so descriptive, and the needle portion was like not really that, especially since it didn't involve an actual needle.
You know what? I think a lot of it had to do with warning. I heard from another person too who was like, that came out of thin air and it was just horrific. So I didn't want that to happen again. Anyway.
Oh my God. That's so good. I love this show.
Sorry, Kerry, we're babbling along about inside baseball stuff here. We should probably get to our muttons, as the French say.
I was gonna say, yeah, I think it's time now to finally get into the formal interview before Kerry goes to sleep over there. Okay, so the inaugural question, as I've come to make it be so. So, Kerry, are you a native Oregonian? And if not, where did your journey begin and how did it lead you here? I know the answer to this, but of course, other people may not.
I am a native Oregonian. I was born in Florence, Oregon, little town on the coast, but grew up in Reedsport. Was born in Florence because there was no hospital in Reedsport at that time, and was K through 12 in the Reedsport school system. Then 7 years at Willamette University, undergrad and law school, both go Bearcats. Uh, a year in Marion County as a deputy district attorney, where I may have prosecuted each of you sometime, and my memory serves correctly.
Oh, I remember.
I was framed.
I still can't dodge that arson charge.
So, 11 years in Washington, D.C., and then back to Oregon. But on my mother's side, I am a fifth or sixth generation Oregonian. My father's side, I'm first generation. He was Canadian, born and raised in Canada, and came down as a young man to find his fortune here in Oregon. So.
Yeah, when I read this long list of accolades and amazing stuff that you have done in your lifetime, and then I read from Reedsport of all places.
Hey.
Now, wasn't there a doctor? Oh my gosh, there was a hero doctor, and I think it was Reedsport. Reedsport is south of Florence, right?
Correct.
Yes.
Between Florence and Coos Bay. So.
Yeah. So that would have been, oh my gosh, I can't remember his name, but it's across the river from Gardner.
Yes. So
Yeah. And like around 1908, he was called up to Florence for a logging accident and fell in the river basically, trying to cross the river to Florence and froze to death. And then a fraudster impersonated him and tried to open a practice somewhere in England under his name. It was a weird story.
Wow.
I'll have to dig it up. But you might have a particular you probably already know it, Kerry.
Have not heard that story. Yes. So.
Oh, I'll send it to you. It's a whopper.
It'd be great.
I can't remember the names of the people. I'm having terrible time with names.
We love a flim flam man.
That's what he was.
Yeah, it is one of those like, Reedsport is not like a tiny place, but it's one of those places where it's it's a smaller town, so you don't think of this very accomplished individual such as yourself, it's like, oh well, of course you'd be born in Portland or from Portland or even Salem or whatever. So it was kind of cool to be like just such a small community as Reedsport. That is so cool, and I love that area myself. It's
beautiful area. Probably maybe our most famous Reedsportonian. In your line of business is the radio host, internationally syndicated radio host, Delilah.
Really?
Yes,
wow.
Delilah and I.
Delilah
and I were in high school together. We were neighbors, just lived across a field from each other, and she has gone on to radio immortality as the host there. So when I was growing up, Reedsport was a thriving timber town. International Paper had a huge facility in Gardner, which was a suburb of Reedsport, and which employed half the town at great family wage jobs. And then, the part of Oregon history when the timber industry, the spotted owl entered, and timber industry left in many towns. And Reedsport's now, almost a retirement town. A lot of Californians move up there to retire for the, nice weather and the lifestyle. And the timber industry has gone away, and it's really hurt the town. They've turned to tourism, and the sand dunes are there, and a lot of summer visitors who visit the sand dunes. Fishing is still part of the economy, but the glory days of the timber industry and down at the South Coast are gone. So.
Yeah, we just made a post about here in Salem. We had the Boise, Idaho, or not. Sorry,
Boise Cascade.
Yes, Boise Cascade paper mill.
Yep.
And I moved to Salem when my mom remarried around 2004, 2005. And I remembered it at least partially still being in operation. But it was interesting to learn that pretty much all the timber and paper kind of went away in the 80s and 90s.
Yeah, I'm kind of sad. I mean, I'm I grew up in Molalla, which was at that time it had a mill at each
Right.
corner, strap trucks driving through town. And I'm kind of sad that, kids nowadays will never know the smell of fresh cut Douglas fir walking past a sawmill.
I thought you were going to make a joke about growing up with the smell of a paper
I was
mill.
gonna say.
That's a thing too. That's
yes.
my dad grew up in Springfield. He could tell you about that.
You get
It doesn't
nostalgic
smell like
for
that now, but it
livestock
did then.
yards too.
Yeah.
Yeah, God.
But a great little town to grow up in. My father owned a grocery store. I grew up working behind a counter in my dad's grocery store, Highland Market, and he was also the mayor of the town for 8 years during my time I was 9 to when I was 17, which was of course a volunteer job in a small community like that. And whenever the senator or governor or congressman would come through town, they'd want to meet my dad, and for whatever reason, he would drag me along, and for whatever reason, it struck me at a very early age that interest in politics and government and history, which is kind of the beginning of my career. My mother was a career school teacher, was Oregon's Teacher of the Year one year in 1980. She was, one of those teachers that you wanted every kid to have, and just an outstanding educator. But politics came at an early age. By the time I was 8, I had memorized all the presidents by memory. Of course, when I was 8, it only went to Abraham Lincoln was the last president.
Right.
So much easier to remember, and there were so few of them. But I'd always envisioned a career in government, and Willamette University, of course, was directly across the street from the state capitol, as you Salemites know.
Oh yeah.
And when I was in school for 3 legislative sessions, I walked across the street and served as an assistant to a family friend who was the legislator from our area. So that kind of heightened also my interest in government and history and politics.
Which legislator was it?
A guy named Bill Markham, a longtime legislator out of Riddle. He was from Riddle, down in Douglas County. Kind of a legend in the legislature. It was the longtime dean, had been there for many, many terms.
Nice.
Do you know what it is kind of about that environment that inspired you so much? Was it sort of the personality of the figures? Was it more so like the legal scholarship?
I think just the excitement of it, and
Sure.
the ability to play a small role in the day-to-day history of Oregon. To see history being made close up as bills passed or didn't pass, and to be able to see the governor walk down the hall, and in a small state like Oregon, to actually get to know the governor and to meet the governor and meet your officials, things that you can't do if you're in California, really,
Right.
a big state. But here in Oregon, you can do it. You can get to know your congressman, and the senator comes through town, you meet him. When I was 8, I was meeting the congressmen and senators and governor because my dad would drag me along, and I'm sure most kids my age didn't care, but I was a nerd back then, and for whatever reason it struck me as important.
Yeah. There's a story about my sister running face first into John Kitzhaber as an 8-year-old, and he was just there in his shorts and sandals at a grocery store.
Well, one of our representatives, Paul Evans, like my family's known him. I mean, he's a very friendly fellow that we've all known locally for.
One of my teachers at Chemeketa.
Wait, really?
Speech teacher.
That's
Nice.
cool.
Carrie, what's your do you have something from the Oregon Historical Society that you wish more people knew about?
Oh gosh, there's a big question. I wish I could take everybody, and maybe I could get the 3 of you sometime out to our vault. We have a 100,000 square foot secret warehouse in Gresham.
Yes, please.
Really?
Yes, please. Yes, please.
Where we keep the vast majority of our astonishing collection. And if you guys are all old enough or to have watched Raiders of the Lost Ark, and I always tell people the very last scene when they put the Ark of the Covenant in a warehouse the size of South Dakota, that's what it is. I mean, 100,000 square feet, chock full of just fascinating things, from Oregon history.
Maybe we could do a live remote from there.
That would be incredible. One of
Yeah.
my bosses at SWCA, for a charity auction, bid on a chance to take a tour of that vault and is actually going to get to go next Saturday. And I'm so
Oh,
jealous.
I am giving the tour.
All right. So
Oh,
if you
that's
see
funny.
Rafaela Lisboa and a bunch
Yes,
of archaeologists,
I've
yep,
been dealing with Raphael for the last couple months to once she bought the tour to
yep,
arrange it and to pick a date, and it's been a while to get the date set for her and her crew,
yep.
but yeah, looking forward to it.
Yeah. So
Well, I'm not doing anything
hopefully
today.
I'm
Let's
next.
go. I was gonna say.
Tremendously cool.
We'll be right there.
Yeah. So to that point, Carrie, have you been able to sort of see what's in that warehouse? Do you have a favorite piece or a most interesting piece?
So many in our collection. One of everyone's favorites out there, excuse me, is the control panel, the Trojan nuclear plant.
Oh,
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, what is it about that just fascinates people so much? Is it just because of the history of nuclear power in the Northwest?
That the whole story of the plant and the implosion of it, and it looks like something out of a 1950s sci-fi movie, but it
Yeah.
was operating in the 1980s, of course. And you look at that and you think of Homer Simpson sitting in front of it, and so
Yeah.
yes.
Well, hopefully
dude.
that's not why it imploded, is because it had a
Right.
Homer Simpson
I'm
sitting
pretty sure
there.
you can get a life-size Homer Simpson action figure to sit down in front of it. Maybe even a cosplayer.
We also have a safe in the library, or in our library downtown, at our main building downtown, and it's got some amazing items in it. I love showing people we have a handwritten letter from Abraham Lincoln.
Wow. Now, how did you come into possession of that?
It was written to somebody here in Oregon back in the day, back in
Ed Baker, maybe?
1860, in the midst of the presidential race, and either from the family down the line. I don't know how it ended up in our collection. I've been there 14 years now as executive director, and it's always been part of the collection. And it's in my little trunk of treasures that I take around sometimes when I speak to civic groups and share some of Oregon's most iconic artifacts.
Wow. Now that's very interesting because I used to work at an antique store here in Salem. And as you know, the McKays were a very prominent family.
Doug McKay. So
Yeah. Now, the owner of the shop, my boss, was friends with the children of Governor McKay. And so periodically, whenever the family needed some walking around money, they'd bring down these artifacts from, the Eisenhower campaign or the McKay campaign, the Reagan campaign. One time, though, they brought us a signed napkin, or no, it was a piece of stationery from the Waldorf Astoria from General Douglas MacArthur.
Doug McKay was the second Oregonian ever to serve in a president's cabinet.
Really?
Wow.
Who was the first?
Oh God.
Well, we could say Herbert Hoover, but he wasn't. He was a steppe Oregonian.
Correct.
Yeah.
Second native. Yeah. He's from Iowa.
And a trolley operator.
The obscure answer is George Williams, who was Ulysses Grant's attorney
Oh
general.
yes, of course.
wow.
The Ku Klux Klan law guy. Wow. Yeah, that's a callback.
And who is your other one? You Salemites should know this. Who was the only Oregonian ever to be in a modern day presidential ticket as president or vice presidential nominee?
Native Oregonian, you mean?
I can't recall if he is native Oregonian, but he was quite well known. Hint: there's a high school in Salem named after him.
Oh.
It wasn't Sprague, was it?
It was not Sprague.
It's not Sprague.
Oh my God. I feel like I know this.
So then it would have to be McNary.
That is correct.
Yep.
Charles
Okay.
McNary. He was Wendell Willkie's running mate in 1940 when Willkie was the Republican nominee against FDR's bid for a third term.
We have to.
Well, I'm glad I got that because my next guess was North, South, West.
Yeah, because we could do Joe Lane. We could.
Yeah.
Oh yikes!
Well, Joseph Lane was the nominee for vice president in 1860. The Democrats
A
famously
third party nominee, basically.
right. The Democrats famously split in two that year. The Northern Democrats, who were pro-slavery, nominated Stephen Douglas. The Southern Democrats, who were even more pro-slavery, the Northern Democrats weren't pro-slavery enough for them. Essentially, the Confederate ticket nominated John Breckinridge, who was the incumbent vice president. His nominee for vice president was Joseph Lane, who was then a senator from Oregon. Lane was a notorious pro-slavery supporter.
Yeah.
And he ended up being the nominee for vice president.
Mm.
Yeah, and
Well,
there was a plot to install him as president, which might actually have worked, but I'm pretty sure that I read about that and wrote about that after learning of it in the Oregon Historical Quarterly sometime in the last 14 years, Kerry. So I'm sure you know all about that.
And in Lane County, one of Oregon's more progressive counties, is named after Joseph Lane. And there's always been talk down there to, change the name of the county. And his grandson actually was a guy named Harry Lane, who was a mayor of Portland and one-term U.S. senator, one of the only senators to vote against U.S. entry into World War One. Very, very progressive for his time. So my recommendation was that they want to change the name, like King County in where Seattle is. It was originally named for Rufus King, who was Polk's or vice president or something, and also had his issues back then. And instead, they just said, no, we're named after Martin Luther King, and they kept the same name.
There you go.
I think that's a great idea.
We'll
Harry
name it
Lane
after
would be
Nathan
great.
Lane, the actor.
or Lois Lane.
Or Lois Lane. I
Lois
love
Lane,
Superman.
Well, we're getting into a lot of historical trivia here, which I'm sure your guests find just really fascinating.
Well,
would
they
hope
can
so.
sit with us.
Oh, yeah.
I would hope.
Yeah.
That bringing up all the like governors and stuff, that actually brings an interesting question for me: is who's your favorite past Oregon governor and why?
Gosh, well, I would have to go with Mark Hatfield.
Okay,
Oh, good
yeah.
choice. I was
Yeah.
gonna say the troll choice is Sylvester Penoyer,
Yes.
but Hatfield was such a mensch.
Senator
That
Hatfield,
guy-
I think he's the gold standard of Oregon politicians as far as
I'll not look upon
integrity,
his like again.
intelligence, what he did for this state when he was either the chair or ranking member of the Senate Appropriations Committee. There would be no OHSU without Mark Hatfield, Oregon Health Sciences University. There would be no TriMet probably without Mark Hatfield. He funded, you can't go to any corner in the state and not find a hospital, a senior center, a road, a bridge, a highway, whatever, that he made possible because of his service in the Senate and on the Appropriations Committee. He also became a very close friend of mine. He gave the homily at my wedding.
Oh wow!
What? Oh, dang!
And he was
Now, Kerry, since sorry, but I just got excited. But do you know if there's any possibility that we'll get to see his archives anytime? Because I know they were like closed.
They are closed to after Antoinette, his widow, passes away.
Oh, okay. Okay, yeah, I was trying to research some Herbert Hoover stuff, and I was really hoping that I could see that. And then he passed away, and the archive was closed, and I was just
Correct.
okay. Oh well.
And I got to work very closely with him during my years in Washington D.C. when I had the honor of working probably for my favorite politician was the Bob Dole, the late Senator Robert Dole of Kansas.
Hey, you did a lot for them. I read.
I worked for both the Doles. I worked for Mrs. Dole as her speechwriter when she was Secretary of Labor for the first President Bush. And then when she went to become president of the American Red Cross, I left the cabinet to do that. I went to work full time for Bob Dole when he was leader of the Senate, but also maintained a connection with the Red Cross and continued to help Mrs. Dole during her years as president of the Red Cross with her speeches and communications, while working full time for Bob Dole as his chief of speechwriting and doing some legal counsel stuff, and remained in very close helping Senator Dole until he passed away.
Now, you were the one who came up with the speechwriting policy of let Dole be Dole. What was sort of the inspiration for that? What was the reason? Were there people trying to kind of tune him in a different direction?
Oh, absolutely. This was during the '96 presidential campaign when he was the nominee. of the Republican Party against President Clinton's reelection. And it was kind of at the beginning of the change that we've seen in the Republican Party. With Newt Gingrich had taken over the House and the contract with America, and they wanted to make Senator Dole, who was a moderate bipartisan leader, into a very partisan, hardline conservative Republican, and trying to make him into that when he wasn't that, and he was an incredible leader. I've never saw anybody who, with his ability to reach across party lines to get something done, didn't care who got the credit, and also one of probably the funniest politician in Washington, D.C., with the quickest sense of humor. After returning to Oregon, I helped him with 2 books on political humor. One called Great Political Wit, Laughing Almost All the Way to the White House, and one called Great Presidential Wit, I Wish I Was in This Book.
We're going to look those up.
And we did something different in the book. We did the first ever ranking of presidents by their sense of humor.
Oh,
that's cool.
Okay, so
from the least funniest president to the funniest president. And what we discovered in doing the research for this book is that the presidents that we ranked as the least funniest, the worst sense of humor, the biggest sticks in the mud, were folks like Millard Fillmore, Franklin Pierce, Benjamin Harrison. These were all presidents, by the way.
Yes.
And there are presidents that historians have ranked as the least successful. And the presidents that we ranked as having the best sense of humor are presidents that historians have ranked as the most successful.
Okay.
And Senator Dole thought it proved a point. As his hero Dwight Eisenhower once said, humor is part of the art of leadership. It's part of getting things done.
Well, it
And
makes you
boy, is that
relatable.
true. And boy, could we use some more humor in politics today. So
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It helps connect people. That's between humor and solid speeches. It brings down this wall between the common people and the leadership, because they feel that they can be trusted.
It's also fundamentally, the American way to make fun of politicians in a bipartisan fashion, because they work for us. It's not the other way around.
And the most important rule of political humor is that it be self-deprecating, that you make fun of yourself. And that's a lesson that the current occupant of the White House does not comprehend or understand.
Well, as the Marquis of Salem, I don't really care what the commoners find funny.
Yeah, that whole "how dare you speak to me like that? I am the insert title here" thing, that belongs in the old country. That's not the American way. But let's not get off the rails into a political direction, though.
Even though we have the perfect guest here to do that.
Yeah, that is true.
We do, and that's kind of the sad thing, that I really like David, you and I firmly believe we're kind of the last generation to really enjoy what all of the previous generations, I mean, even sitting here at this digital table, got to enjoy, was a sort of more laxed, more sensible environment, and now you have to be very careful what you say, what you do.
Well, certainly the illusion of it.
Yes.
I'm not certain there was ever truly a fully peaceful, calm time.
Well, it wasn't peaceful, but I mean, okay, so if go back in time 10 years, me and Kerry would probably have a rousing argument over whether or not Ronald Reagan was terrible.
Right.
But it's different now. It really is.
At the end of the day,
That part I understand. Yeah.
At the end of the day, not only are you still friends, but you come away with feeling, you come away feeling energized. Like, that was a good debate. That was a solid debate. That made my brain happy. And now I just feel icky.
Really? Because I would have been really walking around irritated for like 5 days, thinking of, I should have said that. I should have said that. I should.
Well, just think back a couple of years ago. For 12 years, I served as the Oregon state director to U.S. Senator Gordon Smith.
Mm-hmm.
And he was one of the U.S. senators. He and
Another real
Senator
mensch.
Yeah. He
he and
was right
Senator
before Merkley, wasn't
he
he?
and Senator yes, correct. He and Senator Wyden, one a Democrat, one a Republican, traveled the state together doing joint town halls
I love
during their
that.
time together. They were the
I
only
love
senators in the country from the same state from different parties to do that. And it made national news because, like, oh my God, here in this, time of smash mouth, politics, here's a Republican and a Democrat who actually ran against each other at one time. Wyden defeated Gordon in the special election to succeed Senator Packwood. And then Gordon turned around and won the race to succeed Senator Hatfield. So they had run against each other, but they became close friends, would travel the state together. And those times, unfortunately, you just almost can't imagine them.
Well, it's like Obama and McCain. That was
Correct.
I'm so
Yeah.
happy I got to live through that election. That was an election where I honestly did not care who won. I knew we'd be fine either way. Is there things that McCain had views that are disagreeable? Probably, sure, yeah. But at the end of the day, I always go back to that town hall meeting that he had when one
Right.
of his people stood up and said, "Well, what are you going to do about yes, racial slur kind of thing?" And he's like, "No, I will not allow that. First off, you're talking about my good friend. He is my good friend. We may disagree politically at times, but we still both want what's best for the country." And when I saw that, I'm like, can I vote for both? Like, yeah,
Well,
that was a stand-up moment.
one of my most memorable stories working for Bob Dole, which I haven't shared very much, is in the lead up to the '96 campaign. The Pulitzer Prize winner Bob Woodward was working on a book, as he always did, about the campaign or what was happening, and his book was kind of about the first 2 years of the Clinton administration, how Clinton had the first year had gone bad, and then he was turning it around, and Gingrich and all that, and Senator Dole, by this time, this would be spring of '96, had secured the nomination. And this was coming a few months before the book was going to come out. So Woodward was doing some last interviews with him. And Senator Dole asked me to sit in on the interviews with him. And Woodward told him, he said, President Clinton is glad that you're going to be the nominee because he knows that if he were to lose, America would be in good hands, as opposed to some of the other, hard right rabble rousers who were running for the nomination.
That, like Pat Buchanan,
exactly.
Pat Robertson at that time. Yeah.
Yes. So, but then Woodward said, but there was one thing you did that made the president upset. And Senator Dole said, what's that? And he said, you criticized him on the day his mother died.
Mm.
And Senator Dole looked at me and says, I wouldn't do that. I don't remember that. And I said, Senator, I do recall. And I painted the picture for him that it had been a year and a half, 2 years before. The president's mother had died overnight. And so the first word of it was on the morning shows, the Today Show, Good Morning America. And Senator Dole had been booked to appear on almost all of the shows because Congress was coming back into session after being out for recess for a month or so. And I said, I recall that, and that it was right during the Whitewater scandal when the president and the First Lady Hillary Clinton were being investigated for their real estate investment or whatever. And I said, I think I recall there being some questions about that, and you might have responded. And Senator Dole said, I want to see the transcripts. So he had me order the transcripts of the morning shows so he could see what he said. And he did lightly criticize Clinton. And in fact, he said one time, he said, I guess we shouldn't be talking about this on the day after his mother passed away, but I think he's getting bad advice. He said very light criticism, but he said, I shouldn't have done that. I should have canceled interviews. And he said, I want to write a letter of apology.
Wow.
So here's, Senator Dole preparing to be the nominee to run against President Clinton, wanting to write a letter of apology. So he and I worked together on a letter that was sent down to President Clinton. And within 10 minutes of it being there, Bob Woodward called me and to show you Bob Woodward's sources and say, oh, the president just got this. He loved the letter. He's so touched by it. But imagine today, imagine Donald Trump writing a letter of apology for something he said about somebody.
Honestly, I mean,
Blood in the water.
I couldn't trust it. It's that we're at that point where it's, oh, can't trust it. Talking about really great moments. I recently watched the Twin Towers documentary, and I was really young. Some of people my age remember, but I don't remember that day personally. But I saw the footage of George Bush on the ground, and he's giving
With the bullhorn. Yeah, sorry.
a heartfelt speech. And some guys like, I can't hear you, and his response is, "But we hear you." And I'm like, "Oh, cool, I'm gonna cry." But that's a leader. That I may not agree with some of the things he did, may not agree with the war, may not agree, but at the end of the day, it's all about parsing out the humanity in people. Don't we actually have just been talking pretty heavily recently about, we need to acknowledge the negative and the tragedy, but we don't need to dwell on it. We don't need to characterize people or cultures or whatever by that. We need to acknowledge that, for one thing, these are people. They are human. They make mistakes. And it's important to recognize a mistake from a personal character trait.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and I do want to talk, let me, if I could switch topics, talk about the place where I am privileged to work and have been the executive director for 14 years, because all your listeners should be members of the Oregon Historical Society. We have been around since 1898 with the mission of preserving Oregon's history and making it accessible to everyone. And we do that from our intergalactic headquarters in downtown Portland at the 1200 Southwest Park, a world-class museum, a world-class research library, and then, of course, a really robust online presence, www.ohs.org, where you can find so much information, and you're able to we're digitizing our collection, so you can look at the collection online. Everybody should know about the Oregon Encyclopedia.
Yeah.
I use it quite a bit for my research.
Yeah,
Yes.
www.oregonencyclopedia.org. And as I describe it, it's essentially Wikipedia for all things Oregon, only every article is true.
In peer review.
As opposed to who knows what you're getting on Wikipedia. But, peer-reviewed articles on so many things in Oregon history, the people, places, and things that make Oregon, Oregon. You could spend a rainy weekend driving down one rabbit hole to another and never emerge from the Oregon Encyclopedia. It gets over 1 million hits a year now, and I get a report every month on the most read entry that month. Okay. And usually in the top 2 or 3 every month after month, is the entry on Bigfoot.
Yes.
Yeah, of course.
Closely followed, no doubt, by the exploding whale.
Exploding whale, yes. The entry on Animal House, the movie, which of course was filmed in Eugene.
Yes.
Yep. The entry on rattlesnakes, for some godforsaken reason, I hate snakes, gets a lot of readership. But then serious ones too, like the Oregon Trail, the entry on blacks in Oregon, which should be required reading for every Oregonian to see, the treatment minorities have received here early on in Oregon history. But one of our most watched digital entries is the exploding whale, which my team recently redigitized and remastered. So when that whale goes up, it goes up in bigger, brighter red colors.
Really? You guys have that?
Before, so,
because I use that in one of my classes, but the KATU people superimposed a countdown timer on it, and it causes all kinds of problems in the sound design class because the students are constantly wanting to strip in AI-generated countdowns and things.
Well, one of the most successful Zoom programs we had was back in 2020. The 50th anniversary of the exploding whale was that fall, and I had Paul Lindman, of course, the K2 reporter who covered it live, and famously said, "Blasted bits of blubber beyond all believable bounds."
Still picking blubber out of his hair.
Yeah, he spent the rest of his career up until the last about 5 years running from that line.
No, it's still his. Paul's a good friend. We golf together, and the license plate on his car is Explode. XPLOD.
Oh my God, that's great.
And so this fall will be the 55th anniversary, and on the 50th we had to do it Zoom because of COVID. It was fall of 2020, But the 55th, we're planning on doing an in-person program where Paul will reflect on how that whale changed his life.
I've got Paul's book. It's great. If
A lot
either
of
of you
fun.
guys wants to borrow it, I've already devoured it. So
I'm curious, Kerry, were you familiar with Patrick Wilkins?
No, doesn't
Okay.
ring a bell. So yeah.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I was just curious because he was a legendary TV reporter for I can't remember which one of our stations, but if you did, I had a really cool story about a random book I found that he had signed, but because you mentioned the exploding whale stuff, but that's no, that's awesome. I love hearing
And
about
when
that.
when your listeners are in Portland, they should come to the museum. We've got a great permanent two great permanent exhibits. One called Experience Oregon, which we redid. It's our showcase exhibit. Telling the story of Oregon from time immemorial when the Native Americans have been here all that time to present day. And one called Rivers, Roses, and Rip City: The Remarkable History of Portland, which we just added last year, a permanent exhibit on the history of Portland. And then we bring out so often we exchange exhibits. We've got two fun ones, or one fun one now called She Flies with Her Own Wings: The Golden Age of Oregon Aviation, which
ooh,
Oh,
which is the
nice.
1930s. We have an airplane in the building for the first time that flew in and out of the Beaverton airfield back in the 30s. But my favorite story I've been telling, you guys will love this. Oregon's connection with aviation history. So it's 1857. 1857, 2 years before statehood. There's a church missionary school based in Sublimity, Oregon. You know where Sublimity, a little town
Yeah.
outside of Salem on the way
Yep.
to outside of Staten, was bigger then than it is now. And so the church runs a missionary college there. And the church, which is based in the Midwest, Lutheran, Presbyterian, Methodist, they send a guy out to be superintendent of the school for 2 years, a 2-year assignment. Before he leaves, he turns to his girlfriend and says, "Let's get married, and you come to Oregon with me." And she, being smart in 1857, says, "You go to Oregon. I'm not going to do that, but I'll wait here for you. And when you come back after 2 years, we'll get married." She was true to her word. He did 2 years as superintendent of this school in Sublimity. Came back, they got married, had a family, including two boys named Wilbur and Orville.
oh
All
wow.
right.
Oh.
Who knew that Milton Wright, the father of the Wright brothers, lived in Sublimity, Oregon for 2 years?
How did I not catch that when I did research on like almost 2 years ago for aviation?
That's a
Whew.
great.
So
That's a great
I
news.
maintain, being a kid from Reedsport, which is where the sand dunes are, if they had gotten married and she had moved out here and they had Wilbur and Orville here and stayed here, Reedsport would have been Kitty Hawk, North Carolina. So
Yep.
Oh my God, that's
No,
a fantastic story.
And your other aviation fun fact, so it's the 1920s, the Putnam family publishing empire, or Putnam Publishers, they send their son Charles out to Bend, Oregon, of all places, to be publisher of the Bend Bulletin newspaper. It existed even back then. He comes out to Bend, Oregon. Imagine a guy from New York City coming out to Bend, Oregon in the 1920s, publishes the paper, gets elected mayor of Bend, serves as mayor, and then eventually returns to New York to help run the family empire, where he meets and marries his wife, wait for it, Amelia Earhart.
No kidding.
oh,
So if someone had told you that the mayor of Bend, Oregon was married to Amelia Earhart,
I gotta do another aviation episode.
Aviation update.
yeah. No, these
Aviation
are great little nuggets.
and we're opening in a couple of weeks. We're opening an exhibit called "The Yasui Family: An American Story." And I don't know if you know of the Yasuis. They were a Japanese family, first generation, immigrated to the Hood River area in the early 1900s. Became very well known for a store they ran there. Their son Minoru became the first Japanese American member of the Oregon State Bar, first attorney here. And then, of course, came Pearl Harbor. And first there was a curfew put on Japanese Americans in Portland. They couldn't be on the streets after a certain hour. Minoru purposely broke the curfew, walked into a police station and said, "Arrest me." They did. Into solitary confinement for a while before the whole family and so many other Japanese American citizens, they were actually U.S. citizens, of course, got shipped off to internment camps around the West.
Yeah, my lead professor in grad school was Lauren Kessler, wrote Stubborn Twig.
Yes, there you go. And Minoru would, after the war ended, as an attorney, would fight to get the government to apologize or to admit they were wrong. Passed away in the, I think, early 80s, and eventually President Obama would posthumously give him the Presidential Medal of Freedom, the only Oregonian ever to receive that highest honor. But this is a remarkable exhibit. The Yosua family has shared so much with us from the store, from their archives, from letters, and it's I think a really important exhibit as we lead up to your new word of the day, semi-quincentennial.
Okay.
Next year is the 250th anniversary, July 4th, 2026. 250 of July 4th, 1776. As 1976 was the bicentennial, 2026 is the semi-quincentennial. Semi meaning half, quincentennial 500, half of 500. And this exhibit is, all about citizenship and democracy and things that we have to study and remember as we look at the 250 years. There are some folks who think that we should only talk about patriotism next year. But America never did anything wrong. Well, no. As we celebrate 250, we have to celebrate the good, but we also have to remember and commemorate the bad and the missteps to make sure they don't happen again. And talking about the internment of American citizens, it's just such an important, I think, part of the story of America's story.
Slouching towards Bethlehem, as it were.
Yes. So lots to see at OHS. Everybody, you should, your listener, if you go to our website, down at the bottom of the first page is a little thing you can enter your name and address, email address, and you'll sign up for an every Thursday e-blast that we send out, which is chock full of fun history stuff, trivia questions, and just updates on what's going on at OHS, on the exhibits, speakers coming up.
There it is.
There it is. Including September 9th. Very excited to be bringing back, as part of our Hatfield lecture series, I think her 4th or 5th time we brought her back, the amazing, the wonderful Doris Kearns Goodwin. America's favorite historian will be back. So
that's awesome.
Kerry, do you guys coordinate with other local historical societies?
Yes, every county in Oregon has a small historical society, and there are lots of city historical societies. They all survive on the grace of 1 or 2 paid employees and a lot of volunteers. As OHS is the big boy on the block, we like to help everybody out we can, and so most historical societies around Oregon are affiliates of ours. They can sign up for the affiliate program. We provide them with information and assistance and help and whatever we can do.
Do they keep you posted, with events that they've got going on, so that you can pass that on?
Yes, we do shout outs, and this e-blast now has 25,000 subscribers. So
25,001 now.
Yes, good. we regularly do shout outs for history organizations around the state to share the word.
Well, I dare ask, would we fall under that category, do you think?
We're not a historical society.
Well, no, but we're a collaborative. This amalgamation of.
No, we'll definitely, we might want to include a connection to, I don't know, an interview of, if you ever do an interview with the executive director of OHS, we might want to include a connection to that on the to your podcast on our e-blast. So
this is our 6th podcast, so we might have to grow a little bit first.
Yeah. But that's I always talk about it. It's kind of been my goal from the very beginning is to I guess do what the Oregon Historical Society does, kind of pull all of this knowledge together as best we can. And I couldn't really figure out how to do that without killing myself and having to do all this writing and all this work. And this show right here has actually been kind of the answer to that problem. and it's been very rewarding and been very privileged to interview amazing people such as yourself.
Well, gentlemen, we are almost out of time.
Oh,
Do we
I
have
think
any
we've
final
been out of time
questions?
for a little while now.
I was gonna say there's one thing absolutely have to at least dip a toe in because I'm sure since I mentioned it at the top of the show, everybody's got to know about what was it like being on Jeopardy?
it was so much fun. I just wanted to win one game, and then that would be okay. I've been was a fan since I was a kid. Back not to age myself, when it was a daytime show on NBC and Art Fleming was the
Yep.
host. Out of New York City, and then watched it, of course, when it became a nighttime syndicated program with Alex Trebek. And I'd always wanted to be on. Was out in California seeing friends. Went down and tried out. It was when I was living in Washington D.C. And they called and said you're on and come out, and just to be able to be on it and to win four times, it's was a whole lot of fun. So,
What was it
and
like?
I would say the most surreal moment of my life. I was in one time working with Senator Dole on a speech, and in his office in D.C., and in came former President Nixon, who was in the Capitol. It was toward the last couple of years of his life. He was in the Capitol for some meetings. And I look up, I thought, oh my God, it's Richard Nixon just walked into the office. And Senator Dole said, President Nixon is Kerry, is my speechwriter. He said, you had speechwriters in the White House, didn't you? And Nixon said, well, of course I did. And Senator Dole said, well, bet you didn't have one who won $40,000 on Jeopardy. And I thought, oh my God, where'd that come from? And President Nixon said, I watch it all the time. Sit down and tell me about it. So there, I thought, what were the odds that Kerry Tymchuk from Reedsport, Oregon, would be talking to Richard Nixon about Jeopardy? And
Jeopardy.
I joke, I should have said, I'll take disgraced former presidents for 300, please, Alex.
No, that was his elder statesman era, though.
Yes,
He'd
correct.
rehabilitated.
That would not have been nice. So,
What?
I mentioned the semi-quincentennial, and last year the governor and the legislature named me as the chair of the Oregon 250. Each state has its own little commission, and so would encourage people to go to Oregon250.org and find out about how we're going to be commemorating the semi-quincentennial here across Oregon in the year to come. I mean, people haven't been really paying attention to it up until now, but I think starting this July 4th, the 1 year out, there'll be some more attention. The Revolutionary War states, Massachusetts, Pennsylvania, Virginia, they've been at it for years, driving tourism. Come see the Boston Tea Harbor, come see Independence Hall. Here in Oregon, the only people here in 1776 were, of course, the indigenous people. But we're going to be using it to tell Oregon's story of the last 250 years. And again, celebrating and commemorating both.
Uh-oh.
That's amazing. Just one more question before, because I'm sure people are curious on the Jeopardy thing. What was it like knowing Alex Trebek, especially now that he's passed on?
He was a great guy. He was from Canada, and I mentioned that my dad was born in Canada, so he kind of bonded with me over that. They tape a little Jeopardy secret here. They tape 5 shows a day, 2 days a week.
Oh, nice.
Wow.
So as I recall, they tape on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, get 2 weeks, Monday through Friday, weeks of shows done. So when you're there, you're told to bring changes of clothes, because if you win and you're on that, you just come back the next day. So and Alex is pretty, he's friendly, but he can't show any favoritism to anybody out of they don't want to repeat the game show scandals of, course, the 50s or whatever. So he was, he would talk to you for a while, but then he would, go away, and then they keep all the contestants together and don't try not to separate anybody from the herd to get any, special treatment or whatever. So
cool.
Man, that's really awesome to learn. Oh my God, we could sit here for another hour. We've got to have you back on sometime.
I have a sneaking suspicion that Kerry's just getting started, but we're gonna blast the heck out of our format if we keep going.
Well, I will,
know.
and I will reach out with vault tour invitation.
That would be
I'm
lovely.
We would love
I'm
that.
so
I'm very
excited.
excited.
Oh, that's so great. Yeah,
I've got
it's
1 week of spring term left, and then I'm a free agent for
All
the
right.
summer. So
yeah, it's been quite the interview. I haven't really been able to get a word in edgewise myself, and that's not a bad thing. I'm perfectly happy with more information than less. The last thing you want is to sit here and have dead air and people going, "You going to talk? No, are you going to talk? Are you going to talk?" No, this has been an absolutely fantastic interview, Carrie. I'm personally honored to have gotten to know you and to hopefully talk more, discuss history, um, and build a friendship. I mean, that's what this whole project is about: is making friends and kind of and expanding and connecting our community.
knowledge community action. Yes.
Well, here's your last question. If you were to go out now that we're done and have a drink to celebrate the end of this interview, and you wanted to drink what the legislature has proclaimed as Oregon's official state beverage, what would you go out and drink?
Well, I'm lactose intolerant, so I'm
I was
kind
going
of
to say it's milk.
buttermilk. Maybe that would work. Uh, isn't milk like the official state beverage of
You
every
are
state?
correct. That's
Pretty
why
much.
It's like
Yeah.
most people
like
guess
every
beer
state.
or wine, but it was that Tillamook Dairy Lobby years back that got milk certified as the official state beverage. So
Yeah, I did an episode on state details, and that was one thing I learned was like, and it didn't surprise me, at least that milk is like at least half of all states. There's not really that many drinks that you can divide among 50 individual locations. Oh man. Alrighty,
So
guys.
the official state drink of the Penny Dreadful Story Hour is gin.
Yep, yep.
there you go.
Alrighty, guys. Thank you so much for joining us. This episode was brought to you by the Oregon Voices Network, a historical podcast network that brings you amazing shows like Welcome to Oregon, a Oregon history and lore podcast, Offbeat Oregon, and the Penny Dreadful Story Hour. Our website is now updated to reflect all these wonderful shows. So if you want one source for all of our content, social links like our Facebook group, Facebook page, and Discord, occasional articles, a store supplied by local artists coming soon, and more, check out www.oregonvoices.net. Also, if you love our work, you should seriously consider donating to our Patreon at patreon.com/Oregon Voices Network. The money goes towards all of our projects and helps us pay for things like software, assets, and more. If you are listening to the audio version of this show, you can find more of our work on YouTube at youtube.com/Oregon Voices Network. Gentlemen, where can people find you and your works?
I am on most social media platforms at the Spirit of PDX. And for the next month or so on Saturdays, you can find me digging up Willamette's campus.
Be careful. I'm on the trustees there. I don't want you digging that too much. So
I will do my utmost. But I'm quick, I'm hard to catch, and I'm armed with a shovel.
And I'm at Finn at offbeatoregon.com, and I also try to maintain a presence on Facebook, but that's pretty much the only social media I mess with anymore.
Alrighty, Kerry.
I'm of course www.ohs.org is OHS's website, and visit early and often. So.
All right.
Yeah, I'm definitely excited to get more involved for sure. And oh, that vault tour! Oh man, I'm looking forward to it.
Sounds like that's going to be a lot of fun.
Alrighty, guys. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. From me and the crew. Later.
Bye.
See ya.
Cheers.
Thanks,
All right,
guys.
that'll work it.